is a clear follow-up between each panel. So again, the first one having a perspective of big player, the second one on player moving from the insurance pure player to tech players, and now that will be interesting to get your perspective on being tech enabler. So maybe a few words about your company, and again, as you might have understood, sharing KPI, it might be interesting, so maybe giving either names of customer that you have in the insurance space, or maybe the number of customer you are working with could be interesting just to size where you are in your growth journey. So maybe we can start with you, Lorenz, and a few words on Bsurance.
Yeah, many thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Lorenz from Austria. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And in the moment, I'm on the journey to add value to the insurance industry. Let's see where this ends. We founded the company in 2017, end of 2017. What we're doing is more or less we try to build a new distribution model. We call it embedded insurance at the point of sale, or let's say invisible insurance. And this is more or less a digital platform where we have two ends. On both ends, we do have APIs. So one API for the insurance partners and one API for the distribution partners. And we built a straight-through platform where we digitalize the whole insurance process, starting with distribution and also with claims management.
Okay, thanks. Few words, Ingo.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Ingo Weber. I'm CEO of the Digital Insurance Group. We're a next-generation technology company. We're selling software to insurers as well as to banks who want to do bank insurance, as well as brokers. We're focused on the distribution side as well as customer engagement side. So really looking at the two major problems that the insurers have, finding new clients, as well as increasing share of wallet. So on the solution side, everything from buying a policy, comparing policies, building customer portals, 360 customer view, agent portals, and complete ecosystems. That's kind of the solutions that we provide. At the core of it, we have a very powerful API platform that enables the insurer to connect various legacy systems, as well as connect to any third-party database. From a geographical perspective, we're active in Europe as well as Latin America. We're super excited working with really big blue chip names like Zurich Insurance, Allianz, Prudential, Aon, Santander on the banking side, and a few others.
Okay, thanks. Jeppe, a few words about Penny.io.
Hello, my name is Jeppe. I'm CEO and founder of Penny.io. We're a Copenhagen-based software as a service company. We believe basically in the trend of online sales of insurances. We work primarily on more of the heavy products in the industry, so private lines, motorhome, accident, stuff like that. We believe that to be successful, but by distributing online, you need to distribute through partnerships and embedding the insurance into the customer journey of products people really want to buy. So our core game is bringing insurance products out the point of sales, where customers buy products they actually want to buy in real life. We have we're from 2017. We have clients in the Nordics, in France, and a little bit in the UK at this point in time.
And Bundeep, a few words.
Sure. Hi, Bundeep Rangar, the founder of PremFina. We have one goal, which is to make insurance more affordable. Insurance started as a Lloyd's tea shop kind of idea couple centuries ago, and it's still largely restricted to the Western world. So we want to make insurance affordable by doing one thing just very elegantly, which is we break down the cost of the purchase. So instead of someone paying 5,000 euros up front for the insurance, we pay that to the underwriter, and the end customer will pay us 5,000 euros divided by 12 with an interest charge. So we make insurance purchases bite-sized, and because it becomes more affordable, more people buy more insurance. So we work with everyone across the ecosystem, from the insurance companies, MGAs, agents, brokers, what have you, because we're not selling insurance, we're enabling the sale by making it more piecemeal. So we're in the UK, we started 3 years ago. We got VC funded by Rakuten and Draper and the Thomson family out of Canada, that's Thomson Reuters fame. And we are right now the alternative to the two incumbents done nearly 1 million agreements. We do about 150, 200,000 pounds a day in financing, and kind of growing from there, looking at Ireland, Poland, and Spain to expand this year.
Thanks a lot. And you started mentioning the business and market opportunity. I remember, Ingo, that you wanted to come back to that opportunity. So why actually all of you are developing pure tech player, as you mentioned, and why you consider that having this kind of technology and tool available on the market are especially relevant to sell to insurance players. So can you come back to the market opportunity, maybe to start with?
No, I mean, I personally think it's a golden decade for InsurTechs, especially for enabling InsurTechs. Why is that? I mean, if you think about 10 years ago, we saw the first paradigm shift with mobile and cloud, which has radically changed the way people live and people transact and has changed the customer expectations. And most insurance companies have not really lived up to that first change, while we're now seeing or entering the second paradigm shift, which is all around data and AI. Right, so that is couple that with 5G, billions of sensors, meaning we're living in a hyper-connected world, right? And that is, from a consumer perspective, it's awesome, right? Where we'll get personalized services, really fully digital, contextual, interactive, value-added services whenever we need it. But for the insurers, obviously, this whole notion of embedded insurance and invisible and autonomous insurance means they will have a lot of competitors coming on, and we see the big tech guys and the OEMs and the retailers and the big consumer brands will all move into fintech, right? There is a saying that every company can become a fintech company, and so that means the battleground is very, very tough for insurers, and we believe the insurers themselves will not be able to cope with that. So that's why they need help from enabling tech companies like us.
Very, very interesting. And maybe on top of that, Jeppe, you can add a bit more about the challenge that you are facing developing your product, and why you consider that the customer that you have across Europe, and here maybe you can compare from a country to another one, are not, let's say, able to do it on their own, and why they are relying on external technology. And then we will feel free, Lorenz and Bundeep, to jump in on that point as well. So very interesting to see why they should leverage an external technology.
I think I have two anecdotes. So 13 years ago, we did a count of code lines at one of the biggest insurers in Denmark on their core platform. We were 4 years down the road on implementing a new core system. 85% of their code base was customized. So the core system was not a core system anymore. And imagine how 13 years down the road, the complexity they built on their own infrastructure and core platform. So the difficulty for the insurers is, one part is legacy and the other part is the path they've chosen, at least some of them down the road. So they have massive complexity. I think the banking industry has the same. We're seeing that maybe a bit front runners on innovation still. So I think for us, the opportunity in that space is actually to be a niche player on top of this, trying to encapsulate some of that complexity they have in their core systems. And on top of that, the difficulty for them at the moment is most of them are doing big IT transformation projects, taking most of their time, the most skilled resources, making them able not to be agile, not making them able to do APIs and stuff like that in a timely manner. The second anecdote is we recently needed a pricing API for a motor product, a large insurer in Denmark. It took 6 months to provide a pricing API for a single product. And in this industry, that's just not good enough if you want to be out there.
And 6 months is even very small compared to the KPI I have in mind on other players. So I definitely agree that it's still a huge journey. Yeah, that's
Insurance agile.
And Bundeep, maybe you can make the link with the distribution part, because you mentioned that Rakuten, for instance, is an investor in your company. So that's interesting to see that this kind of e-commerce specialist is interested in this kind of technology enabling an easier distribution. So what's your perspective here, and why either distributor or insurer should definitely rely on InsurTech as a service kind of startup?
Thanks, Florian. So I think there's two things that come to mind. There's a famous quote by the founder of Sun Microsystems way back when called Bill Joy. He was the CTO. And he said, assume innovation occurs elsewhere. Because if you start with that presumption, you'll think of new innovation not happening within your gates, but outside of them. And I think InsurTech sit outside that gate where they are the innovative new bubbles that come up to challenge the incumbents. And the incumbents are constrained by the things you just talked about, such as 5,000 lines of code from a legacy system, which can now be done in 500 lines of code. So you've got this inherent, like, slow-moving legacy that makes them inhibited to move. The second thing is that market dynamics is changing, right? 10 years ago, people bought insurance on the phone, on the high street, or this cool thing called the web. Now, they're buying it through their mobile apps. Just look how many people right now are sitting on their phones. They don't need to go on the web per se, they go on an app. And fast forward 2 years, I'm gonna be talking to Alexa and saying, hey Alexa, while I'm cooking my coffee and breakfast in the morning, can you find me the best car insurance? Alexa will go through all my emails, scan any claims I've had in my emails and say, you've had 2 claims, this is your driving record, I have all that through AI, let me go and pounce around the internet and see what I can get for you and read it out to you while you're like brewing your coffee. So the market is changing for app-based, voice-based, millennial-friendly utilization of products. And they are very time scarce. They're not super loyal. They like brands, but they want immediate on-demand insurance. Now you contrast that world with the world we just talked about with these 5,000 lines of code, where they're used to annual premiums. They're looking at calculations of claims pools that they base their insurance premiums around, their regulatory capital. They're looking at annual premiums on the one side, which is our inheritance, and this future where people want insurance by the month, by the week, by the mile. Some drone guys in Dubai sell insurance by the hour. So what I find fascinating and the opportunity is to bridge those two worlds. How do you allow for the incumbent insurance companies that have got so much invested and have so much power still to then tap into this new world of on-demand, app-based, voice-based insurance purchases? And that's what we're also trying to do, because what we do in some ways is we'll pay the insurance companies for the annual premium. This is your language, we'll speak that, you get your annual premium. By the way, Mr. Broker, you can now offer that on a monthly or weekly or whatever Netflix-like subscription model for all we care, because that's how your consumers are looking at it.
Yeah, so basically more flexibility. So Lorenz, maybe a few words on that, and as well on what is interesting with all of your companies that you are tech tool for insurers. So how do you manage, let's say, to have your brand, let's say, hidden behind the scene? And because you mentioned the word enabling, so it might be interesting to see how you see yourself as an enabler, meaning that Bsurance is not facing the customer at the end of the day.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to add non-technical points, because we're all tech-driven companies. I'm doing IT my whole life, But I think when we're looking in the insurance sector, there are other bigger issues which have to be tackled. First of all, what I definitely see, there is not the idea how to run in a competition model. And when we're looking in the future, I strongly believe competition is the model of future. That means cooperation, but still competing. And this needs a total different mindset. It needs a different mindset of the organization, and they are struggling because they are so successful. And that's the second point. Success is always killing the future. And when we're looking at the insurance industry, it's highly successful still. They're earning a lot of money, and this is the biggest issue why they don't change. And the third point I want to mention, you mentioned it already, it's user centricity. When you talk to insurance managers, every insurance company look at the risk, they look at the product, they look at the regulation, but who takes care about the consumer? And the consumer behavior has dramatically changed and will change even more dramatically. And therefore, insurance companies need someone who help them with nowadays consumer perspective on how a product should look like. So regarding the branding, we do have a brand. So Bsurance does have a brand, but it's an investor-only brand. So we don't want to interact. So we interact with the consumer, but we always interact in the name of the partner. And we have two partner sides, the insurance partner side and the distribution partner side. And so we try to bring them together. So we build a triangle. There's the consumer, there's the distribution partner, there's the insurance partner. But we always try to get the best deal for the consumer, because on the long term, we can only win together when we work in the consumer's name.
And Ingo, on that part, because Digital Insurance Group is everywhere in Europe, so the brand itself is well known. So how do you manage, let's say, to be an enabler for the insurance space, and maybe to go a bit beyond? Could you say a bit more about how you manage to work with insurers? Because you mentioned the need of flexibility, you mentioned the need to better address customer needs. So what does that mean when you work with an insurer? What are the major challenges, and why you at Digital Insurance Group managed to achieve that perfect relationship between yourself, your company, and insurance players that are way bigger and maybe less agile and less fast in terms of move?
Yeah, no, so we're focused on really delivering solutions in a very fast way. So insurers love to work with us because time to market is very, very short. And we're addressing kind of a key pain point that they have, which is the legacy systems that they have. So they're not able to deliver new products, to deliver new portals, to integrate PSD2 or other external services in a very fast way. So they're lacking this the flexibility. They're also lacking very often the mindset, but that's more also a cultural issue, of course, that the whole industry kind of faces, which may be a bigger point than just pure technology, which is, data-driven culture is something that that is really missing and many people need to work on.
Meaning that way beyond the technology, the project itself, when you work with a potential customer, is way beyond just plugging your technology. But I guess that you are working with them on maybe reorganizing their processes, offering them new ideas or new way to think about things. Can you say a bit more about that? And then we will jump in on the shift between service and or consulting, call it the way you want, and pure technology.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's very often a consultative piece in what we're doing. I mean, people come to us with an idea, but then we need to sit down with them, do workshops, and really drill down on what is it that really they want to achieve. I think we also say it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. So I think getting things really right is important. So yeah, so there is always a consultative element in what we're doing, but at the end we build a scalable platform. So we're focused on selling software. That's the main driver. If you look at our business model, and that's why we build a platform which is highly modular with reusable components, so we can adapt it to the insurer-specific use case. It is product agnostic. It can be catered to the business model that the insurer wants to implement, and therefore, we can deliver very short time to market.
Okay. Even if there is at the beginning of the project a kind of consulting or revamping processes part, you manage to be fast. Could you share a bit more about the time frame when you start discussing with an insurance? How long does it take, let's say, to implement your technology?
So I think the implementation is the quicker part. To answer your question, the biggest time we need is really bringing people on board. I mean, also making sure that the requirements are clear. So very often what we see is our solution could be implemented in 3 to 4 months, right? But then there's always a back and forth with the various stakeholders.
Legal.
Well, there's legal, of course, but everyone has a view on customer experience. Everyone has a view on design. I think that is, still the biggest hurdle for getting the stuff into the market even faster.
Okay, and Jeppe, can you share a bit about your experience? And again, if you have different experiences from, let's say, France to the Nordics and so on, it could be interesting to see how corporates are reacting and how, let's say, how long is the first part on, let's say, working with the customer, better understand his needs, and then better fine-tune your technology to plug it?
So first of all, I totally agree on the complexity of dealing with customers and the level of consultancy professional services. So we face the same challenges that we always, the demand from our customers is never the same. They always want 200% more that they actually want if they think about it. But the way we go about it is actually trying to push simplicity as an agenda. We try to push MVPs, trying to scope the first part of the project to get it out fast. And if you bring insurance expertise, bring the right competence to the table, you're actually able to push an agenda. And that pushing that agenda actually feeds into our product, because we're able to do reusability, we're able to productize some parts of it, putting it in the product bucket and not in the customer specific kind of development bucket. And we prefer putting it in the product bucket as far as possible.
And I guess that this is a lot of discussion and negotiation with the customer to let him or her understand that actually they should fit to your kind of product technology instead of, let's say, pivoting your product into their existing way to work.
Yeah, and I think in that process you need to be strong on the supplier side, because you need to have arguments that will benefit your customer at the end of the day. So if you can't argue why they benefit from it in the future, it's very difficult to push that agenda. I think we have quite success with it, and I think going back to the Nordic versus, for instance, France, there's a cultural difference in how we work with our customers, I think. An example, in the Nordics, I think we're very fast on making decisions and then pursuing that agenda, getting it to the finish line. Whereas sometimes on our projects here, we see a bit more struggling with stakeholders with different agendas. So actually bringing everybody to the table and accept the fact that this is what we're going to do. And ultimately, we want to do all this around as well. But to begin with, this is the scope. Let's get it to market, and let's adapt and execute on that, that learning.
Thanks. And Bundeep, on the pure distribution side, do you see it? Because sometimes I guess that you are just between corporates and distributors. So how do you manage, let's say, to make the different agendas around the table fit with each other?
I think we play the role of a traducteur, like a translator, because there's different languages. So when we speak with, so we're exclusive partners with Aviva, the biggest insurance company in the UK. And when we talk to them and they're looking at their legacy systems, that's one language. And then you look at the market where the brokers are operating and saying, we want to offer this on-demand, pay-as-you-go type of insurance, it's a different language. And it goes right down to, like, we had a recent visit by one of the insurance investors, and they had a company do due diligence on us for our technology. And we spent probably a quarter of the time they spent with us educating them about, guess what? Microservices. Right? Because they were like, what's that? So we almost should have been billing them to educate them on what this future holds. And then you explain, like, Google is, the architect of this. They've created 300 microservices. We've got about 25. This is how you integrate. You create your pricing model, not just agile, but using microservices. So you look at that. So, I think Ingo mentioned before the sort of golden age for InsurTechs. I agree completely, but I think part of that is also because if you look at the people who've got the best understanding of consumer behavior and the customer journey that you were alluding to from a design perspective, it's the tech companies. Like Amazon, Google, Apple know our behavior patterns. They see our phone patterns. They see our app patterns. They are, not surprisingly, now playing in the insurance space. They invested in Oscar. Google bought into AppliedNet. So I think the fast-moving guys will be the tech companies initially partnering with the insurance companies, but over time potentially replacing them. Just the way Amazon did in retail, they partnered with other people. Over time they bought them out and started their own products. And that's where I think some of the future exits lie for InsurTech companies, because we speak the same language. We're built on an AWS or Azure platform. The integration will be much easier, and we are able to move tech companies into insurance rather than trying to get insurance companies into tech.
That's interesting, and by the way, thanks for the transition to the tech part, because in the title of the panel, InsurTech as a service, so technology, though we understood that there are a lot more than pure technology. Ingo, maybe that can be interesting to learn a bit more about the kind of, because you mentioned API earlier, which is obvious. So what kind of technology you're leveraging, what kind of challenges are you facing? Again, back to the former question on talent acquisition. Is that the major challenge, or is that explaining to the final customer the kind of black black box that might that they might see for InsurTech as a service. So how do you see the level of technology if we come back to that discussion?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the biggest issue is I mean, really the old legacy systems which were not made to communicate with each other, right? And they were also not made to communicate with any third party services. And I think this is the biggest issue, right? If you want to provide, which sounds simple, like a digital wallet or a customer portal, integrating all insurance policies that an incumbent has, it sounds very simple to all of us, but I mean, this is really a major challenge for every insurer, right? And then if you then talk about even adding additional services, so you want to move from the old traditional customer portal that you have, you also want to integrate, maybe you want to see your payment stream, you want to use PSD2, you want to integrate a loyalty scheme and other things to really create a fantastic customer experience. This is what technology is just not made up for.
And does that mean that you have any requirement from your customers in terms of technology, or maybe you ask them to embrace this technology before starting working with them, or is that part of the first part of the project that you mentioned? So basically, how do you manage to connect with them? Is there any requirement?
No, there is no requirement. We help the incumbents to build APIs if they don't have it, right? So we have like 8-9 years of experience in connecting to all kind of legacy systems. So we have developed our own development tools, our API builder, which we really can sit down with and work with the incumbent. And even if they say they have APIs, usually it means the APIs don't work or don't work properly, or 80% of the calls only whatever happen, or it's not documented. So that's where it's a big part of our kind of customization that is still needed, is on making sure there are connectors to the right systems.
Okay. And Lorenz, do you have the same experience on your market? And do you think that there are, or do you see that there is a huge requirement in terms of technology for from your customers?
Just from my personal opinion, when you look on what needs to be done, this is not really a technology-driven environment. So we don't have high transaction rates. So it's not really a complex IT program. I think it's more or less an organization issue. Sometimes it's a regulation, and sometimes it's missing mindset. So I don't think that the solution for the problems of the insurance industry is to build everything on their own, what they try now, because this is not possible anymore in these times. So what they should start more partnering with companies like us or others, and try not to build everything. They still can build things which are very important for them, but when they see, for example, a distribution over API to partners, perhaps that's not important for them, then they should outsource it and use a business process outsourcing. And that's how we deal with the struggle. We don't want to teach them how they should change the tech, so we just do business process outsourcing. So we, for example, claims management, when we find a situation that they can't efficiently solve the claims process, we do it as a service for them. And that solves, from a consumer perspective, the problem and helps everyone.
Okay, and how do you manage to convince insurers? Because we know big players that tend to develop their own technology internally. So here, I guess that the time to market that you are offering, all of you, is an argument in favor of leveraging an external technology. Can you say a bit more about that?
We do sales from the beginning, and it's like in every business. If you bring some business, they will work with you, and if you want them to give them their business to them, it's a very hard selling point. So what we do is from the day one, we run around in everywhere in Europe and try to sell, try to find the right distribution partners. And when we have the distribution partners on as partner, then we go back to the insurance company and say, okay, this is the risk. Do you want to underwrite? We have the technology. If not, we try to find someone else.
Bundeep, you want to?
I was going to say, like, a case in point for us is, we tackle this industry in the UK, which is 30 years old, and it's dominated by two players. So you can imagine as a startup going after two companies that are doing about £3 billion annually in loans, and you come up as this like young, funky startup, and you're like, okay, we want to take these guys on. our selling point ultimately was something the other guys couldn't offer. So we went out with a software as a service, and we said, you know what, large companies, you want to be able to be a lender yourself. We don't have to be a financing company. We can just give you our software. So that point about collaboration / competition is super well made, because we went there saying we don't have to compete with you guys. We'll just collaborate, because what we have is the cloud-based, SaaS-based, REST and APIs based on REST and JSON that we can now integrate with you guys on the fly, and you don't have to spend tons of money building something. Yes, nobody gets fired for hiring IBM, but IBM can't build what Salesforce built or whatever someone else built on a nimble fashion. So we went with a very light model that said, we're going to collaborate with you. We don't have to compete where you don't, but the deep ocean strategy for us is to provide a software as a service, going to the point of your insurance as a service theme here, that won us initially 2 of the largest brokers in the UK, Saga and OneCall, top 50 brokers in the UK, and we were literally 6 months into being a regulated company.
And how does that reflect in the business model? I mean that on the InsurTech as a service scene, we see players that are just pure technology, meaning it's a kind of SaaS business model. Several others are taking a cut on the premium they are selling or that are sold through their infrastructure. Can you all share a bit more about whether you have a bit of both, or if you are a pure, let's say, licensing business model? Maybe starting with you.
We do both. So the great thing about our model is we offer the flexibility of both. So we can give our software as a service and just take a transaction fee. We also do financing. So typically large brokers will say, we have 20 million pounds we want to deploy in the funding, but our overall demands are 50 million. So they'll use 30 from us from our funding, and they'll use our software for their own 20 million. The following year, they've bought 2 small rivals. Their cash balance is down to 10. So now they use 40 from us and 10 internally. So they can load balance and be flexible with us, whereas the other guys can't. So that point about collaboration, being flexible, giving the software out, integrating quickly, is what's winning us now 103 brokers in the market from 2 when we got funded 3 years ago.
Okay. And you, Jeppe, is that the same for you, or?
Yeah, so we have the same approach. So we also have a software as a service fee and a transaction fee, and that's up for negotiation given the case. So it gives us the flexibility to kind of put our hand on the plate together with our clients and grow with them. If they're not interested in the transaction cost, which is everyone wants to count to 100, right? So the more players you have in your value chain, the more difficult it is to get a decent cut, then you can put it on the SaaS fee.
Yeah, that's why I raised the question, because I know that it's a touchy point for our insurance friends. You, Ingo, is that project by project, or do you have a business model that you apply to any customer?
No, we have obviously pricing, how do you call it? A schedule how we price things. It's a typical software model. It's a SaaS model. So there is some upfront payment for customization, but it's a recurring license model, which is obviously super attractive. So mostly it is SaaS-like. There are some guys who also want to deploy it on premise. So since we work with some banks, not all of them are in the cloud area yet, but we can also deal with that.
Okay. And you, Lorenz?
Yeah, we do all. We are a cloud-based company. We're running typically a SaaS fee. And top of that, we have business outsourcing agreements where we add additional value, and then we also get a higher percentage of the gross written premium. But I just want to add, because this is really a very good quote on that point of view, your existing distribution margin is our business opportunity. So we try to bring down the distribution cost for the end customer and try to get a small split of that and live with that.
Okay, thanks for that conclusion, and I think that this is a great opening for the opportunity you both represent with InsurTech as a service. Thanks a lot for all your insight. Please welcome them and applaud them. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.